Good morning. How's everybody doing? I'm out on my walk. It is absolutely beautiful out. The sun is shining. Um, it's actually hot, if I'm being honest. Um, Something in my sock that is itching me. Um, and I just listened to the first two episodes of Let's Talk. I'm so excited that season 2, new episodes, new title. The new podcast title is Let's Talk, nice and easy. And it's just conversation with me and Jackson. And today is the first day, sidebar, that I'm feeling better since Friday. I have been really under the weather, super under the weather. But I'm feeling better, even though I got shit sleep. Michael left for the airport this morning and woke me up at 4:45 to say goodbye. And I could not go back to sleep. So there's that. But today is launch day, podcast launch day. And I'm so excited for you guys to have a listen. First and foremost, I want to say, do you know how to find a podcast on your phone or your desktop? I think it's really important that we have that conversation. If you have an iPhone, we'll start there. If you have an iPhone, you have an app on your phone called Podcasts. It's a purple app. It's Apple Podcasts. And if you click on it and you go to the little search magnifying glass and type in Let's space Talk, TAWK, Talk, it'll come up. And then you hit subscribe or you hit the little bell or whatever. And you can listen to the first 2 episodes. If you're feeling froggy, you can go back and listen to episodes from season 1. But I would really appreciate if you take the time to listen on your walk while you're driving to work. It means a lot to me, and I only get to keep doing it if you listen. I don't make any money off it, and that's okay. These conversations are not for profit. I realized last night that these conversations really keep me married, if I'm being honest. And this is why I say Michael and I are not couple goals. I mean, I guess couple goals if the fact that like we're still here together, but I try very hard to be honest about who and what we are to the degree in which I feel he is comfortable. I mean, we are very happy. That is true. Sorry, I have a cramp. But imposter syndrome is real. It's a very real thing that plagues us at work. It plagues us at home. For some reason, Facebook is shadow banning me. Usually we have hundreds of people watching lives. And lately we have 90. I don't know what the problem is. The only thing I can say is if you share this on your page, if you comment, it puts it back into the algorithm. Some days I don't care. Other days I know I need it to work. So if you're so inclined, maybe share my page with your friends or a coffee talk that you love or an episode of the podcast so we can keep this all going. I haven't gotten notifications in a couple of days. I know. I don't know like what's going on or why. I don't honestly know, and I'm going to keep my opinions to myself about corporations that take a lot of Eastern European money from a specific country that rhymes with shmusha. But, I don't know what to say about that. So, But anyway, I think imposter syndrome is very real. Maya Angelou, Shawn Mendes, Justin Bieber, Michelle Obama, me, you, um, Emma Watson, who plays Hermione. And I mean, the amount of people who have admitted to experiencing some level of depression due to imposter syndrome is insane to me. The amount of people that we deem so successful in their lives who are struggling professionally uh, and at home. I had one person write me a letter about imposter syndrome, and she said, I have a naturally thin frame, and I got so tired of people like telling me how skinny I was. And she said, and I deal with so much imposter syndrome that I pretend to work out. I post pictures and selfies of myself in different workout clothes with fake sweat, water bottles, all this stuff. And people think that I'm like this dedicated fitness person, but I'm not. I just am naturally fit. And I got so tired of people being like, oh, God, you know. And it's like the way that imposter syndrome affects us in so many different ways. And I told you guys I have some big news to share with you, and I am going to share it. I just need to tell my children first, and I'm not going to do that until after they get out of school. But I think also, if anybody has a link to listen to the podcast on an Android, or instructions on how to do that, if you would please put it in the comments, I would be so grateful. I don't know where Android users go. I would assume you have Spotify on an Android. If you have Spotify, you can go to Spotify and search for Let's Talk with Jamie Premack Sullivan, TAWK, and it should come right up. I don't know what other, it's on Google Podcasts. If you have Google Podcasts, it's anywhere you can get your podcast. And I would love for you guys to listen and rate it and subscribe and tell your friends. And look, like, here's the thing. Nobody who puts themselves out there, Tracy says she has the Samsung and it had the Purple Podcast app already loaded. Great. So you can just go to that app, Tracy, and search Let's Talk with Jamie Premack Sullivan. You can get Stitcher on Android. It's absolutely on Stitcher. Absolutely. But nobody who puts themselves out there wants to have to beg people to be part of the conversation. I don't know why, like, these platforms, like, why they shadow ban and who they choose to shadow ban. I try not to talk about things that are very, controversial on Coffee Talk. I don't post political inciting things. I try to keep this space a fairly safe space from the madness that is the world. I do get certainly more aggressive on Instagram or Twitter, but for the most part, I try to keep Facebook a safe space, not because I don't have very important feelings about things, but because I feel like we are inundated with it everywhere we look. And so if you want to know how I feel about some of the atrocities happening in the world, you can find my personal feelings anywhere. I don't try to hide them. I'm not remaining silent. My personal feelings are everywhere else but Facebook, which is why some people don't follow me on Instagram or Twitter, because they don't want to know my personal feelings about certain things. They like Coffee Talk the way it is, and I respect that. I don't need to force my views down anybody's throat. That is not my jam. Somebody just said, what is imposter syndrome? It's in the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, not only do I give the definition, but I really dive into it. and get into different people who have spoken honestly about it. Shawn Mendes being the impetus for this whole conversation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Shawn Mendes, but I also explain who he is. But his honesty is so important, especially for that age group, 25. I did not have the wherewithal or the honesty or the bravery when I was Shawn's age. I was also a train wreck at 25. I was like just finding God though, so I was like on my way up. It's like an upswing, but anyway, I'm very excited about podcast launch day. It is an extension of the conversations we have here. It's just things that I can get a little further into, things that maybe stuff that is, are you fucking kidding me? You fucking bug. There's a whole world out here and you got to fly into my hair. Oh, thank you, Rebecca. The other thing is that I do talk a lot more about pop culture on the podcast. I don't tend to talk pop culture on Coffee Talk because very rarely does it relate to what I want to connect with you guys on. But if you're interested in my thoughts on this celebrity or Johnny Depp or that thing or whatever, I mean, I do it in a way that is very like sort of Jamie filtered because look, it's hard. Like Hollywood is the impetus for fucking imposter syndrome. And I have worked in Hollywood for 20 years more, if I'm being honest. And, you know, so I try not to talk about pop culture on Coffee Talk too much because it's just like, oh, here's a Hollywood person talking about Hollywood. Blah, 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 blah. But on the podcast, as it relates to the conversation, I do think it's important that I give examples not just from, you know, our frame of reference, but also a frame of reference of people that are visible to all of us. Because like Shawn Mendes, I mean, it's just, if you don't know who he is, your kids do, that's for sure. And I'm really proud of him. And also, like, to Rebecca's credit, the podcast gives me an opportunity to talk about things that get me fired up, but like in the right ways, you know, like, you know, the season premiere of the podcast is about, okay, Nicole, I'll tell her, in the right, and don't forget, you can put your podcast on and tell your Alexa to connect to your iPhone and she'll connect and you can hear it on your Alexa. But what was I just going to say? Oh, God, I forget now. But anyway, if you could do one thing for me today, two things. Oh, I started listening to the two podcasts. The season premiere is, we launched two today, so you get a twofer. The season premiere is Imposter Syndrome. And the second one is a much needed conversation about invasion of people's privacy. That conversation is long overdue. And you won't agree with everything that I say, and that's okay. I don't need you to agree with everything. The only way to have dialogue is for us to listen and talk and agree and disagree, and sometimes agree to disagree. But anyway, if you could do two things for me today, one would be figure out a way to listen to the podcast. I would be so grateful. And the other would be to share my page on your page and see if we can get the shadow ban lifted. Encourage people to like and follow, make a lot of comments, and see if we can get the shadow ban lifted and see if we can get the notifications to come back and all of that. Okay? I love you very much. Truly, I love you. And I hope the name of the podcast is Let's Talk. Let's Talk. TAWK. The link for it is in the pinned comment on my page. It's also in the writing for today's Coffee Talk. You can click the link. It's called Let's Talk with Jamie Premack Sullivan, TAWK. All right. I love you guys very much, and I hope you have a great, great day. And thank you.